I think the biggest thing for your son is that he was feeling the rhythm, the vibration. It's the vibration that gets in and what soothes us. And so it's also a loving being expressing what they love to do. It is part of that energy as well, if you will. Um, so that first and foremost, I think, is what you also experienced is you felt something different. You felt a rhythm, you felt the vibration. Different drums really do give off different feels of vibration. There are certain drums that are beautiful for wellness drumming, and then there are certain drums that are beautiful for taking it up a notch and really having a community groove kind of a feel. Still wellness, still very much wellness, but it's joining in community by expressing yourself versus joining with yourself.
Alrighty, friends, this is going to be a really good one. Today, I'm sitting down with Lisa Colleen. She is the founder of LC Rhythm Events as well as LC Coaching, and she brings such a different, unique, and really refreshing approach to wellness. Today, we get into rhythm, movement, and how our bodies actually process stress and how simple it can be to shift these things when we begin to feel overwhelmed or maybe we're just feeling a little off. Lisa has spent literally years working with schools in the special needs communities and senior living. And what she is doing is so practical, like not complicated, not overwhelming, just really tangible ways to come back to yourself. And honestly, it aligns so much with the work that we do here in Rooted Within and what we talk about here on the podcast. It's about just finding those gentle ways to regulate, reset, and reconnect. There's a lot in this one in a really good and grounding way. I am so glad you're here. Look at how fancy it is.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, I have been so looking forward to spending this time with you. Not just because you are a dear friend of mine who has walked through a lot of life, but just the knowledge and the information and the energy that you bring to so many people through the work that you do. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so blessed. Very
Well,
honored.
I want to start out with what seems to be a wonderful question for those listening who may not be familiar. How would you best describe rhythm-based healing and learning and the work that you do in simple human form?
That's a great question. I think the easiest way to answer it would be think of rhythm as a regulatory tool. So, rhythm for regulation. To me, that is the easiest way to explain it to people because you think about and regulate and deregulate, really. I mean, people have used music in the past to get crowds like hyperactive and things like that. I do the exact opposite. I use rhythm and music to help us to come back to a state of calm and allow us to kind of that anxiety can kind of just leave us. But we have some kind of a beat to find, a rhythm to find, or a pulse to find to bring us back to center. And so that's how I would do it. I think rhythm for regulation is the best way to put it.
Love that. Thank you.
Mhm.
So you blend rhythm and regulation and movement and neuroscience in such a unique way. Can you explain what's actually happening in our body when all of that groove starts?
Happening. You know, this is if you think of our cells in our body, and when we are, let's say we're anxious, sometimes I will have people rumble on the drum because that's exactly what's going on in your body. It's like your body is in chaos. Your breath is probably off. It's usually increased for the most part. But everything in your body, you can just feel the tingling. And so it's very hard to collect yourself. Basically, what I would call it is it's like you're going offline. You're leaving that prefrontal cortex. And so what steady rhythm does, and that's what I do a lot of, is steady rhythm and then some movement that is repetitive. And the beats, it's not fast. I could say beats per minute, but it wouldn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. But think of a peaceful rhythm, one that you're going to maybe want to sway to a little bit more. Well, we do that over and over and over again whilst everybody else is doing their own rhythms. They fall into, I call it, you fall into a groove. It's almost like a trance state because it just keeps going. It doesn't switch. It's the steady and the solid. And so it kind of helps all those cells start to mellow out and then they start to fall into the groove. I work better with my hands than I do with my words, Vicki. So hopefully that's kind of what it means is we just bring ourselves to center that way.
I love that, and I'm a hand talker also.
Yeah.
No wonder we get along so
Yeah.
beautifully. So, thinking about this podcast in general, a lot of people that tune in with us and that we have contact with are often walking through some heavy days, high stress, a lot of caregivers that tune in with us that are trying to find that sense of calm through perhaps drumming or perhaps finding rhythm or finding a beat. What could that look like for somebody that may not have access to a drum circle, right?
Yeah.
Or that may not have any, I've always said I can't carry a beat and 2 buckets. Yet you've taught me otherwise. But, for that person who is walking through some heaviness, how could this look for them to be able to be a tool
Mhm.
for them to find that comfort and that calm?
First, I would suggest people finding, because there's so much out there now with rhythm tracks and certain music. Handpan music is a beautiful way because it has a groove to it, but it has also a lovely tone to it. It's a drum of sorts, but it's a pan drum. Um, if you find something that you like that has kind of like those beats that would be like anywhere from 60 to 100 beats a minute. You find what feels good to you. I am not one I don't put people in this little box because everybody is really different. So 60 beats for some people may put them right to sleep. But it won't help what they're trying to do. It'll almost make you more agitated. So you have to find a groove that feels good to you. Once you find a groove that feels good to you, perhaps on YouTube or whatever. Actually, I have rhythms that I put together that are free of charge if anybody would want to use them because I find that I can't find what I like out there. I know what I like, so I create what I like and then I share it with others. So those are MP3s. If anybody would want them, you can contact Vicky or myself. I could give those to you. They're already rhythm tracks put together. But first and foremost, you find something that has rhythm. Then you start playing it and just sit with yourself. Kind of move those shoulders a little bit. It's not about finding the rhythm and staying on beat in its music class right now. It's also not a drum circle that is going to hightail it into high gear with djembes and all the loud. It's just a steady pace that you find that you like to listen to. Then, when you sit with it and start to just move your shoulders a little bit, then allow your body to sway a little bit. See, what happens when we face trauma or crisis is we've gone from this to this to this to this, and we get stuck. Sorry, I don't know what I did. I'm a little in the dark right now, but it'll come back, I'm sure. Um, but we get stuck. We really do. And in order to get out of that stuck, or we get in the other way where we're this, one or the other, but they're both not healthy. So when you're listening to the grooves that you have found and you allow your body to start moving, then take your hands and just put them in your lap and start a rhythm in your lap, perhaps. Or even better, a rhythm on your heart. Reconnect with yourself. And there's no wrong, it's all right. And just do some breath work where we're diaphragmatic breathing. We don't want to be breathing only through our nose and up through our chest because it's not really going to help us so much. We can't lay down into a groove unless we get that belly. When we're taking that breath in, that belly's going out. And then when we're breathing out, that belly's releasing and coming back in. So once you get your breath, your diaphragmatic breath going, and you allow your shoulders to go, allow your body to go, and then tap in your lap. That you're getting started on what I would call like rhythm for regulation.
Wow, I love that. So beautifully,
Um,
beautifully spoken. And this is why you are so good at what you do. Just your presence alone right now, it brings that much to me as far as just dropping in and getting grounded. And on the note of sharing your music tracks, thank you for offering that. I will put them in the show notes so people can go right below and look at the description and just see what you have to share. So thank you very much for offering that.
yeah, yeah.
I'd like to everything you just mentioned brings me back, and this is what I think back to so often as a young mom who was walking through a challenging health crisis with one of my kiddos. And we fell into it's when we first met you, and it was by no accident. Yet, I had a little 4-year-old kiddo who was walking through a pretty severe cancer diagnosis, and you had one of your friends in the corner of a yoga studio of all places with a bongo. And again, this was all foreign to me. This is not I was not raised in a musical household or anything that involved rhythm or singing or reading notes was not necessarily our strong suit. So seeing a bongo player in a yoga class was my first experience. Yet I spent that whole class listening to just that rhythm, that quiet, soulful, it brought me such peace. But I remember thinking my son could do this. And I ran home and I grabbed his then very frail, sick little boy and I brought him back down there. And that was the first experience I have ever been a part of where I just saw his body just relax. And again, he was just, he was a little guy just sitting there, a rat-a-tap-tap on a little bongo. And it was my first experience of seeing what just that alone did to his nervous system and just that regulation that came. It was and that was, I can now say, almost 20 years ago, but it still sits so present in my heart and in my mind because I saw this before my eyes. I saw this transformation in how he was feeling. It didn't obviously take the hard things that we were facing away, but it brought him into himself. And I actually saw I saw him again, to be honest, for the first time. Behind that mask of chemo, I could see his eyes light up, and a smile come back on his face, and it was one of the most special moments. So can you tell me a little bit more about, you know, what I was witnessing as a mom, but also, what comes when you're in that kind of a state just of stress on the body and illness and despair. Uh, what was happening for him right at that moment?
I think the biggest thing for your son is that he was feeling the rhythm, the vibration. It's the vibration that gets in and what soothes us. And so it's also a loving being expressing what they love to do. It is part of that energy as well, if you will. Um, so that first and foremost, I think, is what you also experienced is you felt something different. You felt a rhythm, you felt the vibration. Different drums really do give off different feels of vibration. There are certain drums that are beautiful for wellness drumming, and then there are certain drums that are beautiful for taking it up a notch and really having a community groove kind of a feel. Still wellness, still very much wellness, but it's joining in community by expressing yourself versus joining with yourself and waking up from the inside out. And I think that's what happened with Lucas. He found himself again. He's waking up again. I see it with many people who've gone through trauma. I see it especially in the uh, dementia care units where we'll be drumming, and all of a sudden, if we put drumming with some of the old songs, they light up. It's just simply spectacular. And it is, I wish I was scientific in my speaking. The thing that's really cool 20 years ago versus now is all of the research that truly is evidence based. And so, if anybody ever wants to look up rhythm for regulation, how does rhythm help me? There is so much great information out there that is, it's research evidence based. You're going to see it from Mayo Clinic. You're going to see it from places where it doesn't just come out of Lisa's mouth because I'm a PE teacher gone groove and I might have an educational neuroscience certification. That's all great, but this has been really studied and they have had over years now. And so that's what I think is important to know is this is good stuff, but it's happening not in our thinking brain. It's happening in our emotional being. That's the thing. And it's almost like an emotional bath is what you're experiencing. And so that's it's really cool.
And tell me, is that why you took that step into the neuroscience of it is because you started seeing the benefits across all ages and spectrums and disease and healthy, because I know you took a really big step in learning more and understanding more. Can
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit?
You know what? The what I did was, unfortunately, to be honest, COVID hit. And I was in schools and I was in, adult community centers, and I couldn't go there anymore. And I thought after 6 months it would get better. And I thought after a year it would get better. And I still wasn't being let in. So I had to do something. And so I met Dr. Lori at Butler University because one of my other moms that would come to jam as a fam took Dr. Lori's Butler's educational neuroscience certification. Dr. Lori was speaking on there's new evidence about rhythm. So my friend, my person who would come, I call her my friend now, but she said, you got to stop by Bongo Boy and go drum with Lisa. And so Dr. Lori came in, drummed with me. There were tears and just a real like this really does work. What I've been reading about really does work. Well, I love Dr. Lori, and I thought, well, I'd like to take your class, the certification. And so that's why I took it, but when it only took me 2 weeks to be into that course, knowing that where it I it's like the lights all went off, and I knew that I knew that I knew. I just switched directions. It changed me because I knew now I have something that I could go to people and I could say, "You can use your grant money dollars. You can do these things," because now we're evidence-based, we're research-based. I'm not just saying, "I promise it works. I promise it works." So
I love that for you, and I see that's such a beautiful lane for you to be in because you speak it, you embody it, and the fact that there's evidence to back it makes it
yeah,
even sweeter,
yeah.
right?
It is sweet. I get it's one of those things where when you know that it's so frustrating for a while because, I can't tell you, 15 years ago, I knocked on doors and they looked at me, it was like, oh, you're one of them. It was like that's what it was. And so I was so glad that if I could get my toe in the door and then just start drumming with people, all of a sudden, you know, principals would come in to see what we were doing in a classroom. I would have cooks out dancing from the community centers or the senior centers that I was at, nurses walking down. We had doctors at Riley when we were at Riley with you who I thought we were going to get in trouble. And the nurses were saying, no, you're not in trouble. There are people, giddy up and down the thing. We all feel good. We love what you're doing. And so I just want to help people. I love what I do. And I know that it works for many, not everybody, but many. And it's a game changer for a lot of people.
It sure is beautifully said.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people have experienced or have walked by drum circles, let's say, well, it's spring break season. So I'll say spring break on the beach, the number of people now that will say, oh, I saw a drum circle. And, drum circles that we've done in the hospitals before to just, whether it's 60 people or a gathering of 3 people. It has always amazed me at the energy that you are able to pull,
Mm.
whether it's a happy festive time at spring break down on the beach or, a period of time in life where it's really hard and you are really reaching deep to keep moving through your days. But the value that I've seen in all circumstances, it's almost as though it's one of those things that crosses all boundaries and obstacles and walls. And it just brings people together without words needing to be said. And that is, I think, what has been so pivotal in our life, at least, is, there were times when my kiddo wasn't strong enough to even talk. Yet it was something that he could do with his siblings and, or, with his parents or with a nurse or another patient. And, that's a really special advantage I think that comes with drumming is you don't need to be filling space.
Yeah. I That really reminds me of those times when we were at Riley and we would have the little kiddos down in their wagons and they're still hooked up to their chemo. And we would have the parents gather around and having the different instruments available, or maybe somebody only could shake a little shaker. But we were setting the bass rhythm. We kept the rhythm going. The facilitator, that's our job, is to keep the steady groove going so that everybody else, what they get to do is they get to express. They get to share and express their being and their feelings and their emotions on the drum. We keep the rhythm, we keep the groove. And I remember some of those parents, there were tears there, but it was something they could do for a moment that brought them together. There was a smile, there might have been a song, there might have been some shoulder shakes, but it was so nice for them to be where they were, but in a moment of joy in and amongst, what they were walking through, because there is still joy every day in a moment, no matter where we are. It's just being able to find it.
Has there ever been a time in your life where you have taken in everything that you teach and actually have needed to use it personally for yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Things that you have given so freely to so many other people, yet you've had to maybe go inward a little bit yourself?
Yeah.
Like,
I was yeah. I was introduced to the drums in a very rough period of my life. So, yes, I learned how to use the drums. I use them all the time. I use them all the time. It might be, or I'll use my rhythm tracks a lot because sometimes I don't necessarily feel like this. I just need to feel the pulse so that I can get my breath back. So sometimes I'll use my rhythm tracks, but um, I learned about drumming through like if teens and parents were having a hard time talking, they drummed because they didn't get couldn't talk, just could drum. You could still feel energy, but you didn't get in trouble with your mouth. And once you got it all out, and then you had some time to just deal with deal with what you had to get out, feel a groove, and then it helps you to process better once you do all of that. So I was introduced that way to where it was communication that I needed to work on. I bet when I have had it with people and I really just need to not talk anymore, I that's my go-to. And I have certain drums that I love. I have one drum that I agree with Remo Belli, who made the drum, is a drum should be in every house. And if it were, it would be my little round Bahia buffalo drum because it sounds so nice and you can drum it to yourself and it just brings so much peace to your body. So yeah, I use it all the time.
What a beautiful idea, especially for parents and caregivers who have those days where they are walking through and carrying so much on their shoulders that, again, needs to just continue to be processed. It can't be fixed necessarily or pushed to
Mm-mm.
the side. It's what
Nope.
we face every morning as we wake up, and we take it to bed with us every night when we go to bed. So having something like that, a drum where you are able to step away even for 10 minutes or 15 minutes before bed or upon rising, where you can truly just center yourself, allowing you to be able to walk and carry what you're needing to carry at that moment. What a
Mhm.
shift that could be in everyday life.
Yeah. It's really cool. And a lot of people with breath work, if you have trouble with breath work, Um, say, for instance, a 4-7-8 breath. It's a beautiful breath to bring regulation to your being. But so often people get caught up with the thinking of the 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you put those to rhythm, like we have rhythm tracks for 4-7-8 breathing, and it changes. And the 4, you'll know that the 4 is for breathing in. You'll know that the 7 is for just holding, and then you'll know what the sounds are like for the 8 to breathe out. Then you don't have to count. You just start to you feel the rhythm, you feel the pulse, and you hear the change, and then your breath matches it. And it really helps when for people that have trouble with breath work because it's harder. It gets them more agitated because they have to count. And if you have
This bypasses the brain,
Mhm, mhm,
which is where I see we make so much progress.
mhm.
Right? When we can quiet that down and have something. So I'm excited to share those
Yeah,
results. Thank you.
yeah.
One of the things I'd like to ask you about is you were one of our facilitators at our last retreat down in Brown County, and it was just so beautiful to see what transpired just amongst the women and the guests and the true gift that comes with rhythm. But I'm going to read this here so I make sure I communicate it. But going into that retreat, you had shared that being rooted means trusting the process of growth and wisdom within you. How would you say that belief has shaped how you show up in your work and in the way that you're able to serve others and in your life?
I think the big word there is probably trust in myself. I, um, I as I grew up, I, um, I'm more of a people pleaser. I mean, so I started to form all of these personalities that I could be in order to keep everything really peaceful and all of that. But I really lost myself for, especially a good deal of my 30s and 40s. And just getting back to trusting, we have an inner wisdom within us that it's there. But when we face traumas or crisis, when we're in it like more of a chronic, that piece of us, that wisdom, it doesn't fight to be heard. And so what it just waits, and it waits till we calm down enough and take a breath and say, okay, now, what do I need to do for myself today? Well, I wasn't trusting for a while. Anything that, like, I didn't even want to trust what my heart was trying to speak to me. And so getting to know myself again, and then trusting in the wisdom, and then understanding that I really do have a gift in rhythm. I was blessed with the ability to hear it, feel it, move in it. It just happens to be what I was gifted with, probably from birth. Now, I it's my purpose. It's to use those gifts that I've been given to then share them with others to bring regulation and health and wellness back into being.
Well, it's a beautiful gift. And yeah, there's no other person that I would love to walk alongside of as you guide because you just do it so beautifully. So thank you.
That's very, very kind.
Let me ask you for caregivers or parents or anyone listening right now, if they are in that moment of tension that we've referred to a few times, or if they're feeling that heaviness in their chest or that busyness in their mind, what would be the very easiest and most accessible way that you would suggest to them to ground themselves? Yeah, I know we talked about the rhythm tracks and the hands on the lap and drumming. Is there anything else that is one of your just go-to quick uh suggestions you could give for people who may be listening and are in that moment?
I, now, this would be, for me, you would have to try it on your own. But when I get to a point where I can just tell it's just too much, especially if I get this going real fast. If I can get to a place where I can look outside or step outside just for a moment, but even if I can just see it, that helps. If I can't, it's okay because I'll close my eyes and I will imagine and picture myself. You picture yourself in your space that you feel safe. Some people will say your happy space. I think when we're in a state of crisis, that may not be a word that I would choose, but I would say, where am I? Where am I right now? And where is my safe space? And then what I do, I sway. Swaying or rocking is a very good way to calm. And when I'm swaying and I'm rocking, I go to my heart and I hold my heart. And that alone really helps. And you don't have to be pushing the button to hear the rhythm track. Even if you can't be outside, like I said, you can sway. You can have a sway. You can sit down on a bench and you can rock. And you can get that beat. You just your own rhythm of rocking, your own rhythm of swaying. If you want to just go around, sometimes I'll have people just go around. But holding here, this is really pretty important. If I have no scientific or evidence-based research on that, I just know it feels good. It's tight, I feel it. Then when you feel better, you can start to open your body. I don't know if you can see this, but when we go from here, then we can kind of open up to here. You can release your head back a little and just let your body let this come in. I'm not going to define it or name it for you because I don't know where everybody is. But whatever, just allow that to just envelop you for a second. And then shake it off and then move on.
So beautiful. Well, and think about it. What do we do with newborn children, newborn baby?
Hmm.
And, times of comfort with our children in a rocking chair, nursing or feeding a baby,
Hmm.
that rhythm. So I think perhaps many of us have been doing this from the beginning of time, yet we just haven't slowed down long enough to connect the dots of just the value that comes with that.
And I think it's really beginning to know that you know that you know that you can take a next step
Right.
because you can. It may not feel like it right that second, but when you connect this way, and then you can come back online with your prefrontal cortex that can then realize, oh, wait a minute. I'm okay and I can take my next step. Words in the middle of a break they won't help you. They'll only cause more chaos. This has no words. This has no words, and it just eases everything back down. I they do the hand model of the brain where if you take this is your brain and then you open it up. This would be your amygdala. It's your watchdog. What happens is this is your prefrontal cortex. A brain that is settled would look like this. This is Dr. Dan Siegel. But then when you experience anything that sends you into fight, flight, or freeze, this is what happens. Prefrontal cortex comes up, watchdog barks, and now you are now offline. You flip that lid. And so what happens there is not going to be any reasoning going on there because reasoning happens here. And so if you can just by rote, if you get used to doing your swing, if you get used to doing your rock, then it's muscle memory. You can just switch into that. And as you do that, dog calms down and rests. We can pet him and come back online. And then we can think again. It's the best way I think I know how to do it. But it's if you ever want to do any research, it's Dr. Dan Siegel and it's the hand model of the brain.
I love that. That is really easy to to
Mhm.
remember and really easy if we go like this
Yep.
at a time for us to know what's happening, but also the situation that we're in to
Yeah.
recognize. And you touched on something that has been very important in my life, especially of late. And I know you said you discovered it in your 30s and 40s of just learning to trust yourself and quiet down everything that's coming at us, and especially again if we're walking through crisis or if we're walking through challenging times with someone that we love, it's easy to have so many things coming at us, uh, and equally as important if not more to make sure that we're carving out that time where we can really center back and reflect on us, me, you, the situation, and what do I need right now to heal and to feel safe and to be able to step back in stronger and feeling more equipped. And so these tools that you're sharing are just so pivotal, I think, in being able to discover that.
Yeah. And notice, like, just notice how your body feels after you rock and doing it when you're not in crisis mode. Before you go to bed, do a little rocking, do a little tapping on your heart, doing things that you are introducing it to your body, not when you're in that state of fight, flight, or freeze. You're thinking about it, you're feeling it. You can do it. Your whole being is online then. So it really makes a difference to, work at it a little bit just when you can.
That I love. So many wonderful tools that are accessible to us as parents, as partners, as humans walking on this earth that we can tap into to help us just fully step into, who we are designed to be and
Mhm.
feel well and be equipped, regardless of, the many plates that we're spinning at times and just,
Yeah.
and this certainly is one of them.
Mhm. I think doing it with your kiddos too and understanding, neuroscience wise, where the brain is, if we've got a temper tantrum going or whatever, or we feel ourselves getting ready to go offline, when we start to teach our children and learn about together the language of the brain, then we can start to say, oh, mommy feels like she's about ready to flip her lid. I'm going to have to breathe a little bit. Can you help me? Let's start tapping a rhythm and let's breathe together. I mean, there's a lot to this that we can use as parents when we're going through everything because the relationship is still there with our kiddos. We've got to be this works well when you're with your kiddos and you can help each other. And so if you learn the language of the brain, if you, there's a place, Dr. Lori's website is Revelations in Education. I think I'll get it to you, Vicki. But if you start to just look at some of those, or listen, read about little clips, it doesn't have to be a big long book. It's just little things of what you can do with your kiddo to help regulate each other. Could be a really cool thing.
Well, and what a beautiful way to model as a parent because it's I always say it's the privilege we have as humans, right? We're going to come up against hard times and obstacles and challenges and disappointments and crises. Uh, How can we best be that example for our kids so they also learn how to step into it and build that strong foundation? Uh, so we maybe bend a little bit, but we don't break.
Yeah. And it gives both of us purpose then, if my son knows that he's helping me, all of a sudden we're helping mom and then mom's helping me. It's a nice little connection point for us, that I love, and it gives us something kind of cool to do together. So that's kind of a nice thing.
I love that. What would be one of the top things that you would hope for people that experience this kind of work that you do? One takeaway that they would feel. And feel, I think, is the key word, right? Because we're trying to bypass what our brain is telling us we should be doing or think that we should be doing in a moment. What's the top feel?
Connectedness, I think, connecting back to ourself, that we're a being that is meant to move. We're meant to express. We're meant to, it starts to bring joy back to the soul. It brings oxygen back to the body. It brings it awakens us. So, but the word would be connecting back to self through all this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am so honored to spend this time with you.
Right
You know,
back to you.
I think of, gosh, 20 years ago, our paths crossed and we have been in alignment ever since, both following our passions and our dreams, yet feeling this connectedness
Mhm.
with one another. And my life is so much richer and blessed by knowing you and what you bring, not only to me, but my family and so many people that you work with. You are a beautiful, beautiful gift and light. So thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you. And I feel the same, by the way. So, but thank you. We're all in this together, right? We've gotta help each other heal. And so that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. And we've
Yeah.
got a lot of work to do together. But as we always say, we're better together. Right?
Yes.
Love saying.
I'm with you.
Thanks for sharing so much wonderful wisdom. And I will pass on everything in the show notes that she discussed today as well, so people will know where to find you and where to follow. Just so many wonderful tips and just experiences that we can create within the four walls of our house. So thank you.
Sounds great. I would love that.
I appreciate
Thanks.
it. All
Yeah,
righty.
I appreciate you too. Thank you.